So, wrongful conviction cases stem from a variety of causes. In our society, unfortunately, we've learned over the years that there are far more people in jail who didn't commit the crimes than most people would think. In fact, just last year in Brooklyn alone, and thank goodness that they've taken on this role, they have discovered over a dozen cases and released inmates who have proven that they were actually innocent. Now, stop and think about this for a minute, because you have inmates who have not served a week in jail or a month in jail or even a year in jail. These are people being released who have served 20 to up to 40 years of their life in jail for a crime they didn't commit. Now, what do we look for in a wrongful conviction case? In wrongful convictions, and a lot of these stem back to the 80s and 90s, so unfortunately some of the evidence that we need is very difficult to find. We are hoping that the person, the inmate who is trying to prove their innocence, has done some of the work, has always maintained their innocence. That's helpful. If you haven't written a confession, that's helpful. Doesn't mean you don't have a case, but it's helpful if you have a direction to send us. What we look for are typically misidentifications. One witness cases, for example, where only one person identified you as the criminal. Obviously, the easiest type of case to deal with, or the most provable case, is with DNA, but that's not most cases. Most of the clients that we have weren't convicted on DNA. They were convicted on a witness saying it was this person. There's usually nothing tying them to the crime scene. Their fingerprints aren't there most of the time. They don't find the weapon tying them to the crime. So there's a lot of different areas to look at. What we look at, oftentimes we find, especially in the 80s, back in Brooklyn and in Queens and in the Bronx, are police officers who at the time were pressuring witnesses or making deals with witnesses to testify against somebody else so that they could more easily get a conviction. That's happened a lot, unfortunately, and the Conviction Review Unit in Brooklyn has established that. We also look for, and we have found several times already, incidents where evidence was actually hidden. Evidence of our client's innocence was hidden from him for 23 years. We were fortunate in being able to uncover these things. Now, you may have family members who are serving time in prison right now claiming they're innocent. We can help you look into that. Oftentimes when we meet with inmates, in fact last week I met with an inmate, and when he saw us walk through the door, he didn't know who we were. When we sat down and said, "We read your letter and we'd like to talk to you," he started crying tears of joy, because he's been reaching out to people for over 20 years without really getting anybody to help him. And these are the types of cases that cry out for help. And finally, in our society, with the initiation of Brooklyn's Conviction Review Unit and other counties starting to do the same thing, we're starting to see judges and the courts open their minds and listen. Let us help you prove your innocence, and we can do that. And if you have any questions at all, please give us a call.